The night he found her was already breaking him in half, the kind of cold that crawled into old regrets and made them ache louder than the wind. Snow pressed against the wooden walls of his small cabin in rural Pennsylvania, and Michael Harris stood barefoot on the floor, holding a chipped mug, wondering how many more winters he could survive pretending he was enough for his son. Then he opened the door and saw a woman kneeling in the snow, soaked, shaking, eyes hollow with fear, and something inside him cracked open without asking permission. She looked nothing like help was supposed to look. Her jacket was thin, her hair plastered to her face, her hands trembling as if they no longer trusted the world to hold them. Michael didn't ask her name. He didn't ask why she was there or how she had found his isolated place miles from the nearest town. He only saw the way her lips had turned blue and how desperation clung to her like frost. In that moment, he wondered what he would want someone to do if it were him or his child on their knees in the snow. What choice would you make if fear stood at your door and mercy was the only thing you had left to give? Michael was a widower of 5 years, though the word still felt too heavy to carry. His wife had died suddenly from a brain aneurysm, leaving him with medical bills, grief that never learned to sleep, and a 6-year-old boy named Noah who still checked the hallway at night to make sure his father hadn't disappeared too. The factory job Michael once relied on had closed, and since then he had worked odd construction shifts, barely enough to keep the lights on. Pride had already been buried long ago. Kindness was one of the few things he still owned. He pulled the woman inside, wrapped her in his late wife's old blanket, and set her near the small heater that struggled to keep the room warm. Noah watched quietly from the doorway, his eyes too old for his age, his trust in his father absolute and fragile all at once. Michael felt the weight of that trust as he decided to let a stranger stay the night, praying he wasn't wrong. The woman eventually slept, exhaustion overtaking fear. Michael sat at the table until dawn, listening to the wind and wondering how easily one bad turn could strip anyone of dignity. He didn't know she was called Catherine Moore. He didn't know she was the CEO of a national technology firm worth hundreds of millions. All he knew was that she had arrived empty-handed and broken, and somehow that made her familiar. Catherine woke the next morning embarrassed by the simplicity of the space and the kindness she hadn't earned. She explained that her car had skidded off the road during a storm, that her phone was dead, and that she had walked until her legs nearly gave out. She left out the boardroom betrayal that had driven her to leave the city in the first place, the hostile takeover attempt by people she once trusted, and the sudden realization that money had not protected her from loneliness. Michael didn't press. He offered oatmeal, apologizing for the lack of sugar, and she ate like someone who hadn't been cared for in a very long time. Days passed. Her car was towed but parts were delayed. The snow kept coming. Catherine stayed, helping clean, cooking meals with a care that felt intentional, almost reverent. She listened to Noah talk about school and dinosaurs, and when he laughed, something in her softened. Michael watched her slowly relax, her guarded posture easing as if she had forgotten how exhausting it was to always be strong. Michael spoke of his wife one evening, not dramatically, but with the quiet ache of someone who still set 2 plates out of habit. Catherine listened without trying to fix him, without offering empty comfort. That alone felt like a gift. She noticed the cracked walls, the overdue bills stacked neatly on the counter, and the way Michael pretended not to see them. She recognized survival when she saw it. When Catherine finally revealed who she was, it wasn't grand. She didn't boast or explain. She simply told the truth one night, her voice shaking with the fear that it might change everything. Michael stared at her, disbelief washing over him, then something quieter. Shame flickered in his chest for all the assumptions he had made, for thinking wealth could be smelled or seen. But it passed quickly. He realized she had never acted above them, never used her status to demand more. She had just been human. Catherine offered to help. She offered money, opportunities, solutions that could erase Michael's struggles overnight. He refused at first, not out of pride, but out of fear. Fear that kindness with strings could break what little stability he had built. Catherine understood. She didn't push. Instead, she stayed present, proving through patience that help didn't have to cost dignity. The change came gradually. Michael accepted assistance for Noah's schooling, then repairs for the cabin, then training that led to a steady job managing facilities for one of Catherine's regional offices. Nothing was handed to him without effort. Catherine insisted on that. She didn't want to save him, she wanted to stand beside him. When spring arrived, the snow melted into muddy roads and quiet hope. Catherine prepared to return to her world of glass buildings and guarded meetings. Saying goodbye felt heavier than either expected. Noah hugged her tightly, and Michael realized that this woman had altered the shape of their lives simply by showing up when she had nothing to give but herself. Months later, Catherine stood on a stage accepting an award for ethical leadership, speaking about a winter night that taught her what success really meant. Somewhere in Pennsylvania, Michael listened to the broadcast while packing Noah's lunch, his heart full in a way he never imagined possible. Before the story ends, ask yourself this quietly. If someone fragile knocked on your door at the worst possible time, would you see the risk or the miracle? If this story stirred something inside you, share your thoughts in the comments below and tell us what moment stayed with you the most. And if this story truly touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe, so more stories of kindness, second chances, and quiet courage can find their way to someone who needs them tonight.